The humid Tampa air always felt heavy, a physical weight that pressed down on me, much like the invisible burden I carried inside. I'd come back from multiple tours a broken man, not just physically, with the scars that still ached on rainy days, but mentally. The nightmares, the flashbacks, the constant hypervigilance. It was a war that never ended, fought in the confines of my own mind. My VA disability checks were more than just money. They were my lifeline, the only thing keeping me afloat in a world that suddenly felt alien and hostile. I was adrift, drowning in a sea of my own trauma, when Jessica walked into my life. I met her at a support group for veterans, though she wasn't a veteran herself. She volunteered, a beacon of warmth and understanding. She had this way of looking at me, not with pity, but with a deep, empathetic gaze that made me feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. She was beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, and she seemed to understand the silent battles I fought. She promised to take care of me, to build a stable home, a sanctuary where I could finally heal. I was so lost, so desperate for that promise, that I clung to her words like a drowning man to a life raft. My PTSD made everything a struggle. Managing finances, paying bills, even remembering appointments. It all felt insurmountable. Jessica, sensing my overwhelm, gently offered to take over. She said she wanted to ease my burden, to let me focus on getting better. It made perfect sense. I signed over access to my bank accounts, including where my monthly VA checks landed and the separate medical expense account. She handled everything, from the mortgage to groceries, even making sure I had my therapy appointment scheduled. She became my rock, the steady hand guiding me through the fog. I truly believed she was an angel, a gift sent to help me navigate the treacherous waters of my recovery. We bought a cozy house, not too big, but with a quiet backyard where I could sit and try to find some peace. She filled it with warmth, with soft blankets and the smell of her cooking, and for a while, it felt like the sanctuary I so desperately needed. She talked about our future, about growing old together, and I finally felt a glimmer of hope I hadn't known existed. I was grateful, so incredibly grateful, for her love and her unwavering support. She was my everything. The first subtle shifts began so gradually, I barely registered them, or perhaps I simply refused to. Jessica started encouraging me to stay home more, saying the outside world was too much for my nerves, that the quiet of our house was better for my healing. She'd intercept calls from my old service buddies, gently telling them I wasn't up to talking, that I needed my rest. At first, I appreciated her protectiveness. She was shielding me from triggers, I thought, helping me maintain my fragile peace. But then the calls stopped coming altogether. My veteran friends, the ones who truly understood what I'd been through, slowly faded from my life. I started to feel a growing isolation, a quiet loneliness creeping in, but Jessica was always there, quick with a comforting hug or a reassuring word, reminding me that she was all I needed. She also started spending more time out. Errands, she'd say, or volunteering. Her explanations were always vague, accompanied by a quick, bright smile that deflected any further questions. I'd noticed new clothes in her closet, expensive-looking items she hadn't owned before, or a new piece of jewelry. When I'd ask, she'd laugh it off, saying she found a great deal, or that a friend had given it to her. My mind, still clouded by PTSD and a deep desire to trust her, accepted these answers without much scrutiny. My own needs were so overwhelming that I didn't have the mental bandwidth to question the small, seemingly insignificant details of her life. There were moments, fleeting glimpses, where a tiny seed of doubt would try to sprout. A fleeting thought. Why is she always so busy when I'm feeling restless? Or, asterisk, that car looks awfully new for a great deal. Asterisk, but I'd push them down, attributing them to my own paranoia, a symptom of my fractured mind. Jessica had consistently told me that my PTSD made me prone to suspicion, that I needed to trust her, and that questioning her would only set back my recovery. Her words, delivered with such convincing sincerity, always managed to quiet the uneasy whispers in my gut. I believed her when she said I was safe with her, that she was protecting me from my own worst enemy, my mind. The sanctuary she built felt less like a haven and more like a gilded cage, but I was too blind, too grateful, and too dependent to see the bars. The isolation deepened, becoming a constant companion. My days blurred into a monotonous routine of quiet reflection and attempts to manage the internal chaos. Jessica was out more and more, sometimes for entire weekends, always with the same vague explanations: girls' trip, retreat, family emergency. She'd come back looking refreshed, sometimes with a new glow, always with another story about some incredible bargain she'd found. I, meanwhile, felt myself shrinking, becoming a shadow of the man I once was, entirely reliant on her for everything. My world had narrowed to the four walls of our home, and my only connection to the outside was through her. I tried to reach out to my old unit, my brothers in arms. I missed their blunt honesty, their shared understanding. But Jessica always intervened, her voice sweet but firm. She'd tell me they were busy, or that I needed to focus on myself. Once, I actually managed to get through to a buddy, only for Jessica to walk in, her face tight, and later, she gave me a long lecture about how such interactions were detrimental to my progress, how they stirred up old traumas. I felt a pang of guilt, believing I was jeopardizing my own healing and her efforts. My sense of self-worth was so low, I genuinely believed I was a burden, and that her sacrifices were immense. A nagging sense of unease started to fester. My medical expense account, which was supposed to be untouched unless for specific, approved treatments, felt lighter. I brought it up to Jessica, hesitantly, my voice barely above a whisper. She brushed it off with a wave of her hand, saying it was just a processing delay, or that a new therapy I was undergoing had higher copays than expected. She always had an explanation, always a reason that sounded plausible enough to my addled mind. I wanted to believe her so badly, needed to believe her, because the alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. The thought that the one person I had entrusted my entire life to could be anything less than completely honest was a wound I couldn't bear to open. So I retreated further into my shell, telling myself it was my PTSD playing tricks, that I was lucky to have her, and that I should just be grateful. The house no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt like a trap. The notice from the VA arrived on a Tuesday, a stark white envelope among the usual junk mail. My hands trembled as I opened it, a cold dread washing over me. It stated my benefits were under review due to suspicious activity. Suspicious activity? My mind reeled. I hadn't done anything. My heart pounded against my ribs as a sudden, horrifying clarity began to cut through the fog of my PTSD. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. Jessica was out, of course. I went to her office, the room she always kept locked, claiming it was for privacy and organization. The key, she'd once shown me, was hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. My fingers shook as I retrieved it, the metal cold against my skin. The lock clicked, and a new kind of terror, far more potent than any battlefield memory, seized me. Inside, her desk was neatly organized, but a quick search revealed a hidden drawer. There, tucked beneath a stack of old bills, was a file. My file. And what I found inside ripped my world apart. Bank statements, not just for our joint account, but for several others I didn't recognize, all in her name. The transactions leaped out at me like venomous snakes. Payments for a luxury sports car, designer boutique receipts, spa treatments every other week, and, most damning of all, multiple credit card statements with charges from Las Vegas. Not just once or twice, but dozens of times, flights, hotels, casino markers. Trips with friends, she'd called them. My friends. The truth hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. She hadn't been building a sanctuary. She'd been building a gilded cage around me, using my suffering as her personal ATM. She'd been exaggerating my symptoms to the VA, isolating me from my support system, so there was no one to question her, no one to see what she was doing. My disability, my trauma, my lifeblood, it was all just a cover for her extravagant, secret life of opulence. My angel was a predator, a parasite. Then, at the bottom of the file, tucked beneath a stack of casino receipts, was a business card. A divorce lawyer. She wasn't just living off my benefits. She was planning to abandon me, leaving me destitute after securing one final, massive withdrawal. The betrayal was absolute, a gaping wound that consumed me. The tears came then, not the quiet kind, but a raw, guttural cry that echoed in the empty house. My world had shattered, and the only person I thought I could trust was holding the hammer. For a long time, I just sat there, surrounded by the evidence of her deceit, the world outside fading into a meaningless blur. The pain was physical, a crushing weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I felt foolish, utterly stupid for having been so blind, so trusting. Every memory of her kindness, every gentle touch, every reassuring word, twisted into something sinister, a calculated manipulation. The anger was a slow burn, simmering beneath the face of my despair. How could I have been so utterly wrong about someone? How could she have so casually destroyed the life I was struggling so hard to rebuild? The thought of facing this alone, of trying to untangle the web of her lies, felt impossible. My PTSD flared, threatening to pull me back into the abyss. But then, a flicker of something else emerged, a stubborn refusal to let her win. She wouldn't leave me with nothing. I wasn't that helpless veteran anymore, not entirely. Deep down, a spark of the old Mike, the one who fought for his country, still existed. I remembered a pamphlet I'd seen at the VA once, for a pro bono veterans legal aid service. It had sat in my drawer, forgotten, gathering dust. Now it felt like a beacon. With trembling hands, I found it, the number a lifeline. The call was difficult, each word a struggle, a confession of my deepest vulnerability and my deepest shame. But the person on the other end listened patiently, without judgment. They understood the complexities of a veteran's trust, the way trauma could make you susceptible. They believed me. That was the first step, a tiny crack in the wall of my despair, letting in a sliver of light. The process that followed was arduous, painful, and deeply humiliating. Going through the bank statements, detailing every single fraudulent charge, every lie she had spun to the VA. It felt like ripping open old wounds and pouring salt into them. But with the unwavering support of the legal aid team, I found strength I didn't know I had. They helped me gather all the evidence, meticulously building a case against Jessica. I had to face the VA, recount her manipulations, the exaggerations of my symptoms. It was terrifying to admit how thoroughly I had been duped, how my own trust had been weaponized against me. But each step, no matter how small or agonizing, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The anger, once so debilitating, transformed into a cold, focused resolve. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for justice. The day Jessica was arrested, I wasn't there. I couldn't bring myself to face her, not yet. The news came through my lawyer, a brief, factual report. She was charged with multiple counts of fraud and grand theft. The legal battle was lengthy, as she tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. The luxury car, the designer clothes, the spa treatments, the Vegas trips, it all pointed back to my disability funds. She received a lengthy prison sentence, and what little she had left of her ill-gotten gains was forfeited. There was no triumph in the news, only a profound sense of exhaustion and a hollow ache where my trust used to be. The betrayal still stung, a phantom limb of emotional pain. But with her out of my life, the path to genuine healing finally opened up. I started proper therapy, not the kind Jessica had curated, but real, intensive support that addressed my PTSD head-on. I reconnected with my veteran community, cautiously at first, then with a growing sense of relief and belonging. They understood, truly understood, without me having to explain. They welcomed me back, their friendship a balm to my scarred soul. I found purpose in advocating for other disabled veterans, sharing my story, raw and vulnerable, to ensure they didn't fall victim to similar scams. My pain transformed into a powerful force for good, a voice for those who might be too broken to speak. The house, once a cage, slowly began to feel like home again, filled not with her false promises, but with genuine peace. I learned to manage my own finances, to trust my own instincts, and to build a life founded on honesty and real support. The scars remained, a permanent reminder of the cost of misplaced trust, but they no longer defined me. They were a testament to my resilience, to the strength I found in the aftermath of betrayal. I was still healing, always healing, but I was no longer adrift. I was finally, truly free.